by the way, for this special broadcast of She Speaks. Do remember, though, if you want to reach out to us, we are available on our lines, 0860 002 That's where you can join us in the studio line. Alternatively, our WhatsApp line is 060 552 7303. At Metro FM SA is where you can find us on our social media handles. At Faith Mangope is where you can find me. And of course, don't forget, the hashtag for this evening is Metro FM Talk, as it is every single evening. Also, just to remember, we are broadcasting live on numerous platforms this evening, as I did indicate that it is indeed a special broadcast of Metro FM Talk. So metrofmsa.co.za is where you can find us. Alternatively, by the way, you can also go onto our Facebook page, or even our on SABC Plus. We're also going live there, including on YouTube. So listen, I think we are absolutely omnipresent. The word will be omnipresent for this evening's broadcast. And it is a broadcast that, like no other, I'm hoping that by the time it is 9 o'clock, you would have felt empowered, you would feel seen, you would feel as though the journey that you're walking on or in when it comes to leadership, especially as a woman in South Africa, I'm hoping that by the end of the conversation, you will feel as though you are not alone, that there are others that are walking similar journeys with you and have carved up similar paths with you. And this is where we begin off this evening, because tonight we're not just talking. We're celebrating, we're acknowledging, we're creating a safe space for women in leadership to tell their stories, confront some of those barriers. And I do believe that by the end of this particular broadcast, we will have somewhat of a ladder that is being handed down to the next coming generation of female leaders who are able to take this country to the next step of leadership. So phenomenal conversations that you're going to be hearing throughout the course of this 2 hours. This particular special broadcast is done in front of a live audience. So I've got fabulous looking ladies with me this evening. I tell you one thing, these are just, they're gorgeous. They kept walking in. I was like, oh my gosh, one is pretty. And then the next one comes in. It's like, another one is pretty. And it's just, so it's a bunch of beautiful women that are with us in conversation live this evening. And I will be also introducing to you our guests who are going to be leading us in this panel discussion that we're going to have. You're going to be hearing also voices coming in from our guests, our invited guests this evening. So the ladies will be asking questions throughout the course of the 2 hours. And we also invite you as well. Ask the questions. Let's go to the places where it seems as though it's difficult to go, especially for us women in leadership. I call it the unmasking this evening, so that we indeed are able to look at effective leadership. And speaking about effective leadership, trust you me, the people that we've got on this panel this evening really, really, really epitomize effective leadership. In fact, let me not waste any time, but introduce to us our guest for this conversation. We've got Dr. Babalwa Maholwana, who is a seasoned pharmaceutical and clinical research executive and boardroom and with CEO experience. And may I add, storyteller who brings leadership to life. Dr. Babalwa, an absolute pleasure to have you join us this evening, and welcome to Metro FM Talk. We're also joined by Dr. Pulane, who is a seasoned bank executive, COO, lecturer, research supervisor, mentor, who continues to shape both the corporate and the academic worlds. Dr. Pulane, much appreciated for your time as well this evening. We've got Ifeoma, who is the head of culture, influences, and advocacy for DIAGEO across Southern, Western, and Central Africa, a leader who drives brands and people forward with impact. Thank you so much, Ifeoma, for joining us this evening. Looking absolutely fabulous. Looking forward to our conversation. And last but certainly not least, you would have heard her actually in the studio a couple of days ago as she joined us as we're talking about the leadership to the big summit that is going to be happening on Saturday for She Speaks. But we're also joined by Azande Ralephenya, who's a managing executive of special projects at EmpowaWorx, a strategist and a communicator who knows the power of storytelling and shifting culture. And ladies, thank you so much. Welcome to you all. And I'm going to dive right in because I think we've got limited time, but so much to talk about. And maybe let me start off with the theme that we're going to be exploring for this part of the conversation. And it really is about the power of women in leadership. And when we're exploring about, the power of women in leadership, Dr. Babalwa, sometimes we like to tell women, or we like to show women the finished product. We like to show, and I often say it's the Instagram product. Look at me, look at what I have done. Look at the accomplishments that I have made. But we all know that there's a process to the power, and there's a process to the actual purpose. And that process is sometimes filled with nights where you cry deep, horrible, sorrowful cries in your pillow. Just talk to us a little bit from your own personal encounter about some of the encounters you've had along the process of being in leadership.
Good evening, Faith. Thank you so much for having me, and what a wonderful panel. I feel really, really privileged. And this is something that speaks very close to my heart in terms of my own journey, where I've learned more and more to become very, very authentic in my leadership. So I've always had this very, very calm personality. I'm a cool blue, as it were. And people always say that I bring such calm to the spaces that I'm in. And I'm the quintessential swan. And I would tell everybody, being a swan means that I'm peddling like anything underneath, right? That what you see is the finished product, as you put it. But I would also say, because I've actually worked in mental health before, I would say that I've had the advantage of working in a of being in a mental institution as a doctor, I would quickly add. And I've learned that you can't always jump on top of the table just because everybody is on top of the table. Somebody has got to keep the calm. However, even with mental health practitioners, one does need to have that space to actually debrief thereafter. So I've had a more than 2 decades journey in leadership, but also exercising a style which is servant leadership, which may not always be popular in a transactional type of culture within organizations. And therefore being seen as quite, you're not getting it, or you're not bowing so much to the bosses, because I'm a servant leader, and therefore my focus is always on people. And therefore I wouldn't be really, really popular until people actually see the results of what my people can pull off. And that takes lots and lots of taking punches for your team, because as a servant leader, then you are the one who's really the hen, because you want your team to shine. But when it's time to take the actual responsibility, then you're the one who's standing up there for absolutely everyone and saying, I'll take this one. So many, many punches. I think my daughter was about 6, and she still remembers the memory to this day. She's 22. And she says, Mom, I remember that day that you cried in your office at night. Because it was just the 2 of us. Yeah. And the frustration was at its peak. Sure. Because you actually feel battered, especially when you're a servant leader, because you are literally taking in the punches. And sometimes you do have to let it out. In fact, often you have to let it out. In fact, all the time you have to let it out. So you're quite right in that it looks smooth, but we're peddling like anything underneath.
Speaking about the paddling also, I think most of the time that kind of paddling we get to witness when it comes to women that are in leadership positions in spaces where it would naturally be male dominated. And if you let me go to you with this one, because operating in spaces where the boys' club still exists, where the boys, where are we going after this meeting, drinks at, where drinks at the golf club still exists. And not a lot of women play golf, so we can't participate in some of these conversations. How then do we navigate paths and still be true in the essence of our leadership, even in spaces that are presumed to be male spaces?
Thank you. I'm really excited to be part of this panel. That's a really beautiful question. I would just like to start off by saying that something she mentioned about authenticity has to always be an underlying word when it comes to really showing up, or whether it's a male-dominated sector or not. There's this popular saying by Oscar Wilde, is an Irish playwright, and he says, be yourself. Every other person is taken. So really, first and foremost, understanding who am I, what do I bring to the table, what's my purpose, helps you first define your essence in the presence that you're bringing in whatever situation you find yourself. For me personally, I found that gender bias would always exist, but my position in terms of how I address it is saying to myself, I cannot control people's biases, but I can control how I prepare myself to disrupt those biases. And for example, I'll give an example. When I first started off with sales, in DIAGEO. It's pretty much a male-dominated space. I mean, you have to drive a pickup, pretty much. And I, for one, I'm someone I'm very girlish, I love to look good. I just love to show up as a lady, And I come into this department, and there's a lot of males, going on. And they're looking at you like, this one doesn't know what she's up for. Like, she definitely can't make it. We'll give her 1 week or 2 weeks max. But I also know that those biases exist because I've done my work. And by the time I did come in, I told myself my first day at work, I'm going to come in stilettos. And I'm going to come in as a strong lady. And then I'll get down to the work, and we'll do the work. So the first day I actually showed up in stilettos. And I did the first round. I worked with one of the mills. They took me around the markets back then in Nigeria. And it was wonderful. And by the second day, I came down my sneakers. And we got to the work. I found that what really helps you to shift the narrative and the bias is competency. It's building credibility and trust. Sure. And for me, as long as you're consistent in who you are, what are you bringing to this table, what is the purpose that exists that you really want to define, and then always really also bringing in empathy, that balance around, compassion, balancing it with, being able to still drive the performance, and understanding clearly what self-awareness and how emotional intelligence plays is really, really important in managing all of that boardroom politics or male dominance. Because in the end, what we have as women, that whole power of intuition, that power of empathy, that whole power of being able to feel, it is an opportunity as much as it's a challenge, but understanding at any point in time, how am I channeling this challenge to an opportunity at any point in time is the game changer for me.
Sure. And I really do appreciate the fact that, when you said I came in my stilettos. So you're going to appreciate the fact that me and my stilettos and my red lipstick, we're still going to lead. And I think that brings rise to different questions and aspects of authenticity and also aspects of imposter syndrome that we sometimes face as women, Dr. Pulane. And maybe you can jump in here when it comes to the imposter syndrome. I think a lot of women, they may be given, or they work hard to assume the positions that they have. And when they finally make it at the table, something happens and their brain says, you do not belong there. And then the voices get amplified by those who want to unseat them at that table. And unfortunately, which we're going to go deep with later on this evening, unfortunately, it's also women who would want to unseat them once they get to that table. Just talk to us a little bit here about how imposter syndrome manifests itself and can potentially block us if we're not able to navigate it well.
Yeah. Good evening, Faith, and your listeners. What an opportunity to be with amongst the beautiful women in the room. And I'm sure out there you are on your lipstick as well this evening. I mean, look, the reality is the higher up you go, especially in male-dominated industries, it gets lonely. And you find that the reference that we have as women when it comes to leadership is masculine. And oftentimes you can easily want to act like what you see, what you have been socialized with, what you have always, your career has been built upon. But I think for me, it's so powerful if you remain authentic. I mean, I think both the ladies spoke about being yourself. You need to, in a way, anticipate resistance. You spoke about resistance from another gender and another women in the room. And you need to manage your expectations. So if you are driven by a certain purpose, I always call myself a purpose-led leader because I have a purpose, and against all odds, the purpose becomes my focal point. And it actually helps me to stay myself and not try to be someone else. So I think it's very key that if you act differently from the norm, from everyone else, you are okay. You become comfortable. Because they're saying that you need to be a change that, you want to see. So if it doesn't start with you, who is it going to start with? We're talking about changing systems. We're talking about rewriting stories and changing narratives. But we still not want to be seen as a different gender. So I think for me is be careful of what guides you. My values guide me, my purpose drives me, my passion drives me every day, and I don't want to be anyone else. I want to be me. So it's very calculated. I don't want to mimic anyone. When it comes to excellence, definitely you'll get it, even better than the other gender. I think it's a standard, it's a given. It's what we need to strive for. But when it comes to how I lead, I mean, Doctor spoke about being a servant leader. I think it's so natural for women to be servant leaders. But I also see myself as a transformational leader. I want to transform the mindset. That is why I'm in academia. I love it because I lecture in business schools, and that's where you find a lot of leaders there. So one of the business schools that I work with, they call themselves Sculpting Global Leaders. I think you guys will know which one is that. And I love it. I love it because it starts there. You need to change mindset over there so that those business school students, when they get into the corporate, when they get or they go back to the boardrooms, they lead differently. So I think for me, it is very, very key that you remain yourself, but more importantly, don't try to mimic anyone.
So you do not have to, especially as a woman who is in a leadership position, you don't have to be one of the boys.
No.
You don't have to do it like the way the men do it so that you can be taken seriously.
Exactly.
But then I'm going to throw a challenge back to you ladies now, right? Because societal constructs have been so used to a certain way of leadership from the 50s, 60s, when women were not even put in positions of getting into spaces of work, never mind leadership. So the corporate structure, and you'll find even the people that are coming into this field of work are used to a certain or have an expectation of a certain kind of leadership. I'm going to get there and I expect the boss to be like this. There are expectations that have been inculcated in us through societal grooming, unfortunately. Then, Azande, how do we break those barriers, right? And talk about transformative leadership that you were speaking about, Doc, earlier. But how do we break those barriers but still don't have, for example, your junior team looking at you and saying, she's weak? Yeah. Because that servant leadership, that empathetic leadership can also be misconstrued as weakness.
Yeah. So I think for me, Faith, it's something I've battled with as well. It's between keeping the balance between being too strong and too liked or likable. And that has been a very difficult journey for me as a leader, because once you're too direct, people say you're aggressive. But once you are coming in with warmth and, a very covering leadership style, people then, they judge your authority and say, no, you don't have that level of authority. So my challenge was, okay, how do I then keep this balance? And how do I navigate these dynamics, And it really was about mastering who I am and how people or the team I work with, relate to me. And for me, it's always about being excellent. Master your craft so much that you don't leave room for people to doubt you. You've got to master your craft. You've got to be so good at what you do that people have no room to say, okay, she's like this or she's like that. You know what I mean? So I think for me, it's always been practicing to master my craft, to be good at what I do, to be so skilled at it. But also making sure that within the rooms that I'm in, I can read the energies and I'm able to then, navigate that. When you're in a room with AMA 2000, how you lead them is different, and then when you're in a room with, senior people.
You can say Gen X. It's
Gen
fine.
X.
You can just give it and just say Gen X.
Or more experienced.
Or boomers.
More experienced.
Where they come from the area, you have to call them mama, so-and-so,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when you are in a room with more experienced individuals and you find yourself in a position where you have to lead them, it becomes very difficult. But I've learned that sometimes you lead from the back. You allow people, you listen to them a lot, and you lead from the back. And I think for me, that has worked a lot. Sure. Just leading from behind and making sure that I listen to people. So, yeah.
Can I weigh in there?
Yeah, of course.
Unconscious bias and societal expectations normally start at home. how we raise our boys versus how we raise the girls. It starts with us. And in most cases, I know we're talking about women and the other gender. It's okay, we can do that. But do we ever take a step back and say, as women, which stereotypes are we perpetuating? And which stereotypes we need to do away with? So if you are going to treat a girl child, as an example, differently, oh, you should not take a lead, mommy's boy, I mean girl, and daddy's girl, and you raise them with this soft approach that needs somebody to lead them. They're just like a supporting act. You do whatever you take them with as supporting act. And then later on in life, you expect them to be in boardrooms and be assertive and face different genders and not break.
Sure.
Think about what you're doing as a woman, as a mother.
I love what you were saying there, because it almost gives a segue to us going deeper with this conversation around it starts at home. I was listening to a podcast, kind of like this one. But not as good at this as this one. I was listening to a podcast, and they were speaking about how, especially when it comes to leadership, as leaders, the most important relationship we can ever have are the relationship either with who you marry or with the group, with your, which I call your cabinet, your close cabinet, because those can either bring you closer to your purpose or bring you further away from your purpose. And maybe, Dr. Babalwa, let's expand a little bit on that, especially with leadership and who surrounds the leadership.
So I couldn't agree with you more and with that sentiment more, because when I did an exercise on finding my purpose and really mapping my value system, it actually took me back there. That journey took me back to who are the voices in my head, especially the pioneering voices that shaped this person that I am. And that turned out to be my dad, who was the first graduate in his village, my grandmother, who had a standard 6, and she was so proud because she was a pioneer in her time. And I had an aunt who was a nursing sister who insisted from a very young age that my sister and I would not be nursing sisters but would become doctors. So those were the defining voices, and those literally started at home in terms of how I was raised. But then I was also so fortunate to go to a boarding school. I went to Inanda Seminary, where we were basically taught we could beat any boy. And I did consistently. and therefore, I was fortunate to never even have that sense that I could be inferior to anyone, because I would be like, bring you, I'll bring me. We'll see at the scoreline. Almost like a similar challenge that I do now, even in the bottom, to say, I can actually bring my servant leadership. I can actually bring my softness, and you can bring your aggression. Let's see the results of the teams. Because there is a way in which one nurtures. And my nurturing leadership actually also comes from the home in itself. In that when I did this analysis, I realized that my handing actually comes from home, comes from how protective I am of my daughter. I've been a single mother for most of her life. And I would always have her in mind when I make major decisions. And I actually took that into the workplace. And it worked in such a way that nurtures the most cohesive teams, the most trusting teams, and they trust off one another as well, never mind trusting me. And like Azande, I actually lead from the back. I am quite comfortable because I want my people to shine. And that's similar in terms of what I do at home, is that I've raised my daughter to believe that she can be and do anything. My daughter is so audacious that in 2018, when we were visiting family in Brazil, she asked if we couldn't bring her white friend. And I was like, I love how you think, because you think surely, we can do that, because I raised her that way. I raised her to belong in the space that she's in. And certainly that charity begins at home is a principle, and one can carry that through. And those are the critical relationships. And I'm also somebody for whom family is a core value as well. So everything that I do has to go back to the home, has got to be nurtured in the home. So I agree 150% with that sentiment.
If you're wondering what exactly is happening in the conversation this evening, if you've just tuned in to Metro FM Talk, well, we've got a special broadcast for you of Metro FM Talk. We've got She Speaks, a really powerful platform where we have invited pioneers in their own aspects and in their own right in the different sectors of industry in which they champion to join us for a conversation as we explore leadership and as we explore legacy, and also how then do we start looking towards the next generation of leadership as to how then do we bring them along for this ride and make sure that we leave no one behind. So it is indeed a special broadcast. We're going all the way until 9 p.m. It's also done in front of a live audience, so you're going to be hearing different voices throughout the course of this evening, and I do enjoy and invite you as well to come along with us on the journey as we really do start exploring different aspects of leadership, and also going deep in terms of what shapes us and the uncomfortable conversations that we have about leadership, because leadership is not done in a day. Leadership is curated over many months, over many years, and over many tears and many moments of joy. So what does that look like, and how does it represent itself? Please do join in, and you can give us a call, drop us a voice note as well, and we're also going to have our live audience that are going to be engaging with us a little bit later as well in this one. But Ifeoma, when we're speaking about, and I want to just bring in with what Dr. Babalwa was saying about how she's able to bring an aspect of home into work. Let's talk a little bit about boundaries and how important it is, and how. Maybe let's start with the how. How do efficient, effective leaders set boundaries? Healthy boundaries, whether it's with family, whether it's with the workplace, because sometimes, and COVID-19 has shown us that sometimes we can work 24 hours a day to our own detriment, to the point of burnout. So help us and teach us a little bit about what boundaries looks like.
Well, interesting. I think boundaries will differ for different people. Again, it starts with your values. What I also hear from most women is when they look at their values, top hierarchy, you'd see religion, depending on the God you serve. You'd find family, in that order. I find that commonality is really important to kind of also accept across board, that people would always value family above everything else in terms of the choices that you make. So when we talk about boundaries, personally for me, and I'm going to speak from my own personal view, knowing the people you have around you is really important. So from a work perspective, I've moved around roles for quite a while. In the last couple of 10 to 15 years, teams will change. Yeah, there are still some teams that I still belong to, the WhatsApp groups, and we still talk every day. And that's a team that I've left over 10 years ago. There will also be those teams where you can drive cohesiveness, but also you need to understand the people in there. I've also seen teams where some people just want you to keep it to work levels. They're not interested in you getting into the personal lives. And it takes you trying to get there to realize this is where the boundary is. So assessing every team member, colleague, on the basis of, I want to know you, and understanding what are their boundaries. And then from your own part is also to say, what is it that you're comfortable with? I'm a sunshine yellow, yeah? But I also double as a cool blue sometimes, and then as well as a fiery red. But it depends on what I'm dealing with at the time. So being a sunshine yellow pretty much means life of the party. That's pretty much how I kind of show up. And my job kind of just also reinforces that. I mean, I'm head of culture, I'm dealing with influencers and driving advocacy. I'm doing the cool stuff that marketers do, next generation marketing pretty much. And people just tend to see, like, I love your job, I love what you do, I want to be your handbag, I want to go with you the next one, But personally, really personally, beyond all that sunshine yellow you're saying, is a deeply seated introvert, yeah? I keep a very small, tight circle. So beyond my immediate family, my sisters, I just have one best friend. That's the one person I talk to about anything and everything. Again, people will think, oh, you know 1,001 people. I do. They're acquaintances. They're different buckets, but I'm not one that you want to go over and I don't talk too much about my personal space, you know, and that's me. But again, it's about knowing you and not overstepping at any point in time. And when it comes to the work side of things, I found that one of the things that is really most powerful, and it's also a guiding light for me as a leader, is people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Yeah? And that's a popular quote by Theodore Roosevelt. That has been a guiding light for me. Now, when people know how much you care, depending on how you're able to show up in terms of your empathy, really, really show up for them. You're there for them. You give them feedback. You take their feedback and you work on it. They start to see a leader who is actually interested in their own growth and development. You're looking out for them. You will see how they naturally manifest towards you. Yeah. And once they are open to trust you, they believe that they're in good hands. They will go the extra mile for you. And then, for me, I consider myself a transformative leader. I like to lead from the back and push people forward, but I'm in it with them. I'm the dirty hands type of leader. We are in it together. I'm not going to leave you to, you know, just roost, but I will make sure everybody is visible, owns something. And at the end of the day, what that does is you form this cohesive force that even though there are boundaries, yeah, you can work 36 hours and everybody still feels like we're having a good time. And that's the power of, you know, very transformative, inclusive leadership. And I found that has always propelled me, propelled my teams, and really led us to excellence. Yeah.
Well, I think when you're speaking, and one of the themes that we are threading this evening is around how we need to do things differently if we are going to expect different results. And from what we're getting here is that we don't have to do it the way that they did it. Yeah. We can actually be intentional about carving out leadership roles and how we lead an effective leadership that is for the benefit of all. And you said something profound around trust. And it usually expresses itself, and I want to just spend some time to speak, especially to those that are leading in organizations where the culture of trust has not been established yet. And organizational culture, which has not been defined, means people get to work in silos and others get to backbite and others get to, you know, go to the boss and try to be the favorite, and others are the favorite of the boss, and then the other one is known as the backstabber of the company, and the other one is and the water cooler on a Monday morning just becomes a very toxic space. And you'll often hear people speak about how corporate culture has become toxic because we've not established a culture where people have got trust, people feel safe. So maybe, Azande, from an intentionality perspective, if I'm listening and I'm head of HR, or I'm head of culture, or I'm head of, you know, wherever it is that I am in my corporate space, and I hear this conversation happening this evening, I'm thinking, but I've got a toxic environment, and these people have to be effective somehow. Where do I start? How can I start in these environments?
Sure. I'll speak from experience, and I think for me, it's just my personal experience. I've had the pleasure and been very fortunate of working with the Gen Zs. And you get into a space and it's exactly that. It's toxic, and you have to build a team now that trusts you, that believes in you, and it becomes, you know, it's a difficult task. But what makes it so amazing or pleasurable for me is I make it my mission to know the person behind the job. So for an instance, you know, I'm maybe working with a young social media intern or whatever, and this person feels, you know, like they are at their wit's end. I make it my mission to be close to them. You know, I think people want you to listen to them, to hear them. They need to feel seen, first of all. I think that's the problem with toxic cultures. People don't feel seen. Yeah. People don't feel like they are valued or they are heard. And it's important that you do that. And for me, I don't want to build just an empire. Because empire is follow the emperor. Once the emperor dies, it falls. It's building an institution where you have shared values, where you put processes in place systems in place that they can follow, that they can trust, and that they can believe in themselves, that once you're gone, they can continue with.
Sure.
Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
So that is it for me. It's building that level of trust and getting to get into their psyche, understand them, meet a person at their level. Because when you don't, it becomes a problem, and that's where you guys clash. So I think what's worked for me is meeting individuals at their level, making sure that you understand what their frustrations are. Let them feel heard, let them feel seen. Because the minute they do, then something switches, right? Then they start believing in themselves, and they start doing more. So I think my leadership style is more people-centered than it is more than anything. Sure. And it's really about when I get into an environment and I'm still new and I'm meant to lead a team, I really want to see how they work, what each person's working style is, right? And you build on their strengths. Because oftentimes you find that a young person or whoever is frustrated simply because they're taking on more than they should. A, B, they're doing what they don't love. So work on the person's strengths and their abilities more than you would letting them do the boring, the mundane stuff. Because once they start enjoying what they do and you trust and they start seeing that you are allowing them to do what they love, then that's when you build the culture of trust. So build an institution, not an empire.
It actually allows me. Would you like to just add to that, Dr. Babalwa?
Just add to that, because I've had the privilege of working for multiple multinationals, but also local organizations as well. But then also studied trust specifically in business school. And I remember traveling overseas, and one organizational psychologist, a professor, he's a theorist, and he challenged the notion. He says, if you have to put trust as a value and articulate it amongst your values in your organization, he says you probably don't have it. So it's like, because he says the stuff you put in your values is the stuff that you aspire to. Yeah. You're not there yet. And that taught me a lot in terms of fostering trust and working more and more with Gen Zs and understanding that it's very easy. Of course, it's very easy for us, I'm an Xer, to dismiss them as, they think everything is toxic, because then there's the other extreme. But to understand, even from their lingo, and really get down to the bottom of the things that matter to them. And I've learned more and more that psychological safety in the workplace is so critical. And that comes from fostering that trust and being very intentional about it. Yes, in terms of the listening, in terms of understanding where they are and the strength-based leadership, but also the openness, your own openness to receiving feedback from them. And their openness, therefore, to receive feedback from you. But I think even more critical is allowing people to fail, allowing people to speak up so that they know that you're not going to get penalized for speaking up or for giving people constructive feedback, because this then becomes part of the culture, and this fosters that psychological safety, which is what is so critical for innovation, for collaboration, and ultimately performance. And there's more than enough work in terms of literature being done in this area that proves that this actually works.
Yeah. I've got about 2 minutes before I take a break, but I want to squeeze in this aspect, Dr. Pulane, and I'm hoping that you get to really drive home the point before we segue into our next theme for the evening. Is we're talking here about building trust, we're talking about transformational leadership, we're talking about being intentional in even intergenerational leadership that you were speaking about, Azande. But I want us to spend some time, Dr. Pulane, on talking about how sometimes in corporate culture or even in any form of organizational culture, what causes the women in leadership to become toxic and bullies? Because sometimes the corporate and that world, it's not the men who will bully you. It's not the men who will look down on you. It's not the men who will say that you are no good and you're not going anywhere. it's the woman. And dare I say, sometimes it's even the black woman on another black woman.
Absolutely.
Look,
Let's go there.
I haven't spent any time with you, Faith, before, but you're actually opening up wounds that I thought I've healed. I mean, I've been in banking for more than 20 years now, and I can tell you for free that the best leaders that I've had have always been men, and white men, for that matter.
Yeah.
Africans men. I love my Africans bosses. I still love Africans bosses because I've had only 2 female leaders in my career, and both of them I had the worst experiences ever. And if I can take a step back, I remember I was doing my MBA back 2010, and my daughter was 3 years, and I worked for a certain employer, not my current employer. And my female boss was so horrible that I remember going for 2 weeks before seeing my daughter, because I was expected to be in the office at 6 o'clock in the morning, meaning I need to leave home at 5 o'clock. And I'll be back at 11 o'clock. Obviously, when I leave at 5 o'clock, my daughter is sleeping. When I come back home at 11 o'clock, my daughter is sleeping. And I went through what I call temporary insanity. That job drove me out of corporate. I resigned because I was losing myself.
I want you to hold it there because I want us to really expand and explore the story, because I think your journey is going to be able to heal a lot of women. And I think it's going to be able to open up spaces where we start confronting the toxicity and cleaning it out this evening. But I do need to go pay some bills because we have to make sure we're back again. So we're going to go pay some bills very quickly. And then do stay tuned. Of course, we bring you that special broadcast of Metro FM Talk. It's She Speaks, and the women are speaking this evening.
Don't touch that dial. It's now a different playing field. Metro FM. It's where you want to be. Whether she's raising babies, raising bars, or raising the roof, she's doing it with heart. This Women's Month, we honor your story. We see you, we celebrate you. She's not part of the story. She is the story. This Women's Month, Metro FM plays her truth loud and clear. Metro FM. It's where you want to be. A bruise may heal, but the scars of violence run deep. If someone you love is being hurt, help them find their voice. And if you're the one suffering, help is real and healing is possible. Visit metrofm.co.za for anti-GBV helpline resources. Today, your life matters. Your story matters. Let's end gender-based violence in South Africa. Hashtag it ends with you.
The Chili Boys are going all out for a win in front of their home fans. However, Amabagania are confident nothing will stop their winning spirit. This is the Betway Premiership. Catch Chipa United versus Orlando Pirates live this Sunday, 31 August on SABC radio stations at 3 p.m. SABC radio stations are also available on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Marawai, why did you think a plastic bag and tape was a solid window replacement after that smash and grab? And why does it sound like a kite every time you hit Puma 60Ks? Marawai, why aren't you insured with Santam, the insurer that covers theft or attempted hijacking? Get your car covered online in just 2 minutes or SMS cover to 36101. Santam, this is freedom. T's and C's apply. Santam is an authorized FSP, a licensed non-life insurer and controlling company for its group companies.
I'm Andile Ncube umzilankati isiqongo sinoJoji Ntombi eyazi ngizala ke suka le emzimkhulu egugweni ila ke inkaba yasala khona. Your son got a star on his forehead, brightens your every mood when you you get as old as I am. What do I like about Mzansi or love? You know, it's home. Beyond football, I enjoy cricket. You know, or Andile, Ngasixhosa, go Ace Mabheka. You know, my favorite nickname of all time, like Captain Yama 2000. In everything we do, just like the African continent is the beginnings of life, right? Just like women are the beginnings of life. The SABC and SABC Sport is exactly that.
Catch Andile, Captain Yama 2000, Ngube on match days, live on Latuma. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Breathe deep. Trust your instincts. This is the taste of real reward. Bold, gold, perfectly balanced beer. Sometimes you need more than your eyes to recognize quality, because true value comes from within. Here's to Africa's most awarded beer. Carling Black Label. Champions deserve champion beer. South Africa, be sharp, not for persons under the age of 18.
We have different languages and cultures, but what we have in common is that we all want a dignified funeral and for our loved ones not to worry about money when the time comes. Trust Clientele to provide you with affordable funeral cover that will pay out within 24 hours. SMS Metro to 45537. That's Metro to 45537. SMS now. Clientele Life is a licensed life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates, terms, and conditions apply.
Make your business soar with the VodaPay Max card machine. Accept card payments, sell airtime, data, electricity, and more, all for the special price of 1,299 Rand once off. Plus, get insurance for 12 months and the ability to earn 100% of your purchase price back. You could even qualify for 1.5 million Rand in funding. Now that's business accelerated. Vodacom Financial Services.
Scan the QR code and upload your
VodaPay Max
for sale
or
to
visit
persons under the
Vodacom
age of
store
18.
today.
TCCs apply.
Yoms.
She's not just surviving, she's thriving. Strong, stylish, and street smart.
Women have always been instrumental in the advancement of the human cause.
This Women's Month, we celebrate the powerhouses shaping our world. From the boardrooms to the streets, more than titles, she's a full force. Carrying generations while chasing dreams. Metro FM celebrates the women shaping the streets and the boardrooms. Metro FM, it's where you want to be.
Yo, Mzansi, payday weekend is here, and ShopRite's got the drink deals to make your weekend extra. Grab 3 ships, select whiskey, 750 ml for just 169 Rand 99. You're saving 35 Rand. Keep the vibe flowing with Corona Beer Extra NRB. 2 by 6, 355 ml for 185 Rand. That's a 45 Rand saving. Or chill with the Cabernet or Merlot or Chapel at 1.5 liters for 750 ml for just 84 Rand 99 cents. Save 25 Rand. Stock up, save big, and make your payday weekend extra only at ShopRite.
Hey yo, turn the beat up a little bit. Get ready for a radio revolution that transcends boundaries and elevates your senses. From chart toppers to timeless classics, we got it all. This is more than radio. This is Metro FM. We define the pulse of your musical journey. Don't just listen. Immerse yourself in the ultimate audio experience. My flow, where the beat never fades and the entertainment never ends. Started like this, son. Turn it up and let the magic unfold. Metro FM. It's where you want to be.
Yo, Mzansi, payday weekend is here, and ShopRite's got the drink deals to make your weekend extra. Grab 3 ships, select whiskey, 750 ml for just 169 Rand 99. You're saving 35 Rand. Keep the vibe flowing with Corona Beer Extra NRB. 2 by 6, 355 ml for 185. That is a 45 Rand saving. Or chill with the Cabernet or Merlot Chapel. 1.5 litre, 750 ml for just 84 Rand 99. Save 25 Rand. Stock up, save big, and make your payday weekend extra only at ShopRite.
The biggest commercial radio station in South Africa. We are going nowhere. We are here to stay. Let's go. We are here with you now and forever. Metro FM Talk with Faith Mangope. Monday to Thursday, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m.
It is about 2 minutes before the top of the hour. If you're wondering exactly what is happening on this thoughtful Thursday evening, well, we're bringing you the special broadcast of Metro FM Talk because we're having a She Speaks round table. I call it the table of safety, really, where we have women in leadership, different sectors of industries which they're pioneering, where they're going to be sharing their experiences about leadership, the barriers that they've been confronting, the challenges that they've overcome, how they're ensuring that the next legacy or the next generation of leaders are some that have learned from the mistakes. In other words, where they were walking, the next generation gets to run. Where we crawl, the next generation gets to walk. And how do we become intentional about setting up those kinds of spaces? This is a special broadcast of She Speaks, courtesy of Metro FM. And this is also one of those conversations where we bring in a live audience. We've got beautiful ladies that are joining us for the conversation this evening, all powerful in their own right, listening in the conversation. I know many of them were nodding and oohing and ahhing as we're going through the first aspects of the conversation, and they'll be joining in and asking some of those pertinent questions so that we all get a sense of where do we go from here, of what tangible outcomes we can take as we really champion the aspects of leadership. And of course, this is building up to Empower Women that is happening on Saturday. So ladies, it is going to, if you think today's broadcast is phenomenal, wait until Saturday. We're going to bring you something extra special courtesy of Empower Women as well as Metro FM. But of course, we were talking before we went into the break, and Dr. Pulane was sharing a little bit because we're getting into the nitty-gritties about how sometimes the toxic traits are toxic traits that are brought about by women in leadership positions against other women, and particularly black women sometimes, who then become toxic and bully other black women, stopping that flow of leadership from being organic. And you were just expounding about how in the banking sector, for example, you've had the pleasurable experience of having Afrikaans leaders, Afrikaans men who are able to really hold you up and create a space of growth for you. But the most toxic experience of leadership, unfortunately for you, came from women.
Yeah, thank you so much, Faith. Let me continue, but I must thank these breaks because, they allow us to control our emotions. I'm no more emotional. I feel like I'm back. But yeah, back to your question. I mean, yeah, so my experience taught me two things. First of all, was really to shape my leadership journey forward, because I was not at this level. I was still climbing the corporate ladder. And I told myself that I'll never put anyone in this kind of situation, especially another woman. When I say anyone, I mean both genders, because I do lead men as well. But I think for women, I recognize the challenges that we continue to face, and especially of caregiving. I was a mother. The society expected me to be caring for my 3-year-old, to be probably sitting at home and trying to raise this child than trying so hard to manage my career. And it's really that double standards that the society has, that if you want to progress, we want to progress, but also there's that pull back to say, but hang on, you want to be a leader, you want to show up, you want to be at work at 6, 7 o'clock, but hey, remember, there's a 3-year-old, and I was married. My husband was there, so it's not like I was a single mother, so I could, co-parented. And it was not even him saying, take care of the child. It was me seeing that I need to I have to do both. I have to give my 100% here, I have to give my 100% there. And probably that is why I broke down, because I could not. There was no way that I was going to be the best mother to my 3-year-old and the best mother to this demanding job. And it was male-dominated, very difficult portfolio in investment banking. And I was also studying. There's no way. And those who have gone through Gibbs MBA, you will know you're not allowed to fail, honey. If you fail, I'm telling you. But the point I'm trying to make is our experiences, in most cases, they shape how we show up for others. Yeah. We learn from those experiences. And I think if you're a leader and you don't become a better leader for others, then you have a problem. And I think the reason why women leaders are behaving the way they do is because, guys, the higher up you go, it gets lonely at the top. And I think they too are actually struggling. So they don't know how to handle their struggles and still lead others and pull others up. It's too much. So I think the minute you recognize the struggles, you are able to pause and actually come up with better strategies that serves everybody. So, I mean, I still see it now. Women, we compete a lot with ourselves.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
I don't know why. We compete a lot, and it's like the competition is out there. We are still not equally represented, especially at the top leadership. We're doing well, middle management, lower management, but top leadership, we are very few. But instead of lifting each other up, instead of being sisters keepers, we're competing with us and not men.
Sure.
So I think it's something that we all need to reflect on to say, why is it so? Is it because we're struggling? Probably not. Not all, obviously, areas or environments, it's against men. You find that some environments are actually female-dominated, but females themselves.
And I was reading the room as you were talking about, and we opened up I call it Pandora's box when you start talking about toxic leadership, especially from woman on woman, because the yeses that were coming in from the room, it actually means that there's something wrong. You know, there's something wrong when we are supposed to be these nurturers but can't nurture each other. So, and I just want to, as we're going to be closing off this particular segment, Azande, I know that you were also sharing, because you were nodding profusely in agreement with some of this, and I know that you've got your own experiences around, you know, how to overcome toxicity and to be better than what you witnessed and how you were treated.
Absolutely, and I can relate so much to Doctor's story, because I think I was very young when I was put into leadership. I think the person who trusted me the most, that when I didn't believe in myself, when I didn't even know I had it in me, was a white African man. And
shout out to the white Afrikaans team tonight. I feel like I just needed to say that as a shout out to the white Afrikaans team. And the women in the room are agreeing. So clearly there's something here that we all are recognizing.
Can I say something before Azanda continues? I think it's because in my environment, or the environments that we come from, unfortunately, leadership had always been white Afrikaans.
Yes.
So yes, I would say shout out, but also
acknowledge the fact that we still have institutional discrepancies that we need to overcome. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think what happened was I was in a position where there were people who were there before me who were more deserving of that role, but when I was put in that position, the trust that he had given me and the belief that he had given me, it boosted my confidence. I then I worked in a higher education institution. And for me, moving from the smaller campus to the larger campus was through him and his ability to put me in rooms where I wouldn't ordinarily be in. And at that time, when I moved into the next phase of my life, unfortunately, the person who was in the position where I was supposed to look up to that person was a woman, and they treated me like I was gunning for them.
Sure.
I had the worst imposter syndrome at that point, and I'm still young, and I'm still trying to navigate this world, the world of leadership. It eventually made me feel so bad that I was like, you know what? I don't think I want this.
Sure.
I don't think I need this. I deserve better, and I moved. And when I moved in my journey of leadership, I keep remembering that and how I felt at that time. And to me, it switched, and I said, I'll never make someone else feel this way. I will never. And I live by the value of multiplication, right? When you get into a space, you grow and you lift as you rise. You make sure that you open opportunities for other women. The table is big enough. If it's not enough for us to sit, then you make another table. You make it long so that everyone sits, everyone has a voice. And unfortunately, our experiences shape our perceptions, right? And my perception, which I think what we're trying to, counteract against, especially with this platform, with Empower Women, is to say we cannot fear the intergenerations, right? You cannot fear, as a young person, you cannot fear the Gen X or the boomers. You cannot. You need to learn from them, and they can also learn something from you. And you need to form an interconnectedness. You need to form a safety net for each other, where you are able to call on each other when you need that support. Don't think that Azande is gunning for your position. Azande should be gunning for your position because you need to move out and grow. You know, that's what it's meant to be. I always tell the young people the Gen Zs that I work with, I'm like, you cannot be in this position for 2 years and not want to move. I've always been firm, and I said to them, you cannot stay in a place in your 20s for 5 years and just, it's going to stifle your career. You're not learning anything. Move and learn, you know. Steal with your eyes. See what other women are doing. I think it's very important.
And you know, when you were speaking about how they should be gunning for my job because I should be moving, it just segues beautifully into the theme of legacy. And Ifeoma, maybe let's talk a little bit about how are we faring as women in leadership in being intentional about the legacies we create?
Yeah. That word legacy is a powerful one. And from a leadership perspective, personally, I believe that every leader's legacy should be about leading right and then leaving the door open for others to come through. That should be the underlying legacy for any leader out there. So the question of taking your job shouldn't even be on the table. You should be feeling very proud that you're raising leaders and that you're allowing, you know, that ladder to be steady for other women to come on top. This conversation has gone around several times, and we've heard something quite consistently. It's lonely at the top. Loneliness at the top is real. And there is nothing like sitting in a room where you're the only lady. It's no longer like, you know how people feel proud, I'm the first person to graduate from my village. No, there's nothing proud about being just the only woman anymore. And if we hear that clearly, what does that then say to us as women leaders in terms of how do we then start to reshape, you know, what we know today as leadership, so that more and more women can also come through that same ladder, and that we are not the only ones in the room. It's really important that we call out a few things. And for me, I think representation of women is not isn't something that should be incidental. It should be very intentional. So for me personally, I've had really good women leaders in my life, as well as really great men leaders as well. And I have also decided not to fall into that trap of the fallacy of generalization when we say most women leaders are not great, or only great leaders come from men, because I've experienced both sides. And I've come to realize that it's not a gender conversation. It's more about orientation, background, and circumstances that you're faced with. I find that women are a lot more, what's the word I'd use? We're a lot more critical of ourselves, and fairly so.
If I may just interject there, I'm being signaled to go pay some bills, but I want us to take, when we come back, to start from the point where you're saying that as women, we're harder on ourselves, because I think you're speaking some real pearls right now. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back and continue.
Okay.
We bring you breaking news. Now everyone who buys at Tops wins a prize, guaranteed.
Everyone?
Almal, alles, aunties, uncles.
Cousins and even their cousins. Arthurs, Marthas.
Brads, Chads.
Tinas and Cleaners.
The aware Masakiners.
The Hey Wenamapenners. Everyone wins at Tops with 300 million rand in guaranteed prizes. Buy any participating products for 100 rand or more. Swipe your Spar Rewards card, scan the QR code, and upload your till slip. Not for sale to persons under the age of 18. T's and C's apply.
Dikwena Chamedzi have one game plan.
A win in their own backyard.
However, Usutu have a different mission. They are not traveling to Limpopo on holiday.
They are hunting for 3 points. This is the Betway Premiership.
Catch Makesi FC versus Amazulu FC this Saturday, 30 August at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC 1 and SABC Plus. Then on SABC radio stations at 3 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Auntie Sophie's lounge suite has been wrapped since '94, just in case of a burst geyser. But she recently switched to Santam with home contents insurance that protects all her valuables. So Auntie, no more need to keep everything wrapped. The kind of freedom Santam gives you takes some getting used to. Call 0860 444 444 to get covered. Santam, this is freedom. Santam is an authorized FSP, a licensed non-life insurer and controlling company for its group companies.
Get ready for Rapid Fire from Lulabet, the hottest online casino event this season. Stand a chance to win your share of millions in prizes, including cash, cars, and more. Register now at lulabet.co.za and stay tuned to our socials. That's why more phones prefer to fly with Lulabet. Lulabet, you know bets.
T's and C's apply. No person under the age of 18 years is permitted to gamble. Operator licensed by the Western Cape Gambling and Racing Board. National Responsible Gambling Program. Toll-free counseling line 0800 006 008 or WhatsApp help to 076 675 0710. Winners know when to stop.
This week on Off-Pitch Goals, Sonono and Sanela Khoza join us and take us through the storied success of the Zodwa Khoza Foundation. We talk legacy, community building, and youth career pathways. Tune in to SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 this Saturday, 30 August at 6:30 p.m. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus. Off-Pitch Goals, where we showcase how the stars score in business. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Can we just talk? Metro FM Talk with Faith Mangope. Monday to Thursday, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m.
It's 40 minutes after 8 o'clock on this thoughtful Thursday evening. Of course, we're bringing you the conversation that is happening as a result of a special broadcast courtesy of a Metro FM Talk, as well as She Speaks. We're having the special edition where we have invited women who are trailblazing in their sectors of industry, women in leadership positions, women who are able to hold their vulnerability and authenticity true and still be able to hold up space for other women to thrive in this business. And of course, we do invite you in this beautiful special broadcast to join in the conversation. They are here for you. We really have invited the best of the best when it comes to women in leadership positions, and we do invite you to come along with us on this journey. Give us your thoughts on it. Maybe you've got questions for our guests this evening. Do make use of our social media handles, because we are actually live on our YouTube platforms, on SABC Plus, on Facebook as well. And if you want to engage with us on our social media handles, that's on X, you can do so. You can send through your questions, and just remember to hashtag Metro FM Talk or hashtag She Speaks, and then we'll be able to filter in our questions as well. As I said, it is a special broadcast, so this is all happening in front of a live audience, beautiful women that are joining us this evening. You're going to be hearing some of these voices throughout the course of the evening as they begin to ask those pertinent questions around how do they take forward this mantle of leadership and become effective in their own ways. But we were carrying on before we went to go pay some bills, Ifeoma, and you were speaking about something so critical, which I think, and I mean, when you said it, even it anchored even in my own soul. Because when you said, I think as women, we are very hard on ourselves. And I said, preach, Ifeoma, if you knew how hard we are on ourselves as women, I think we don't forgive ourselves. We're not as forgiving. And when we mess up, it's a mess up, according to our minds. Just talk to us a little bit about how that manifests and what is the actual culmination and the impact of such.
Yeah, thanks, Faith. So I was saying that as women, we're a lot more critical of ourselves, and even just bringing it as simple as go on social media. If there's anything positive that has been highlighted about women, go to the comment section. If there are negative comments, they're mostly from women than men. And then it then begets the question, why do we think that we need PhDs? PhDs are a simple acronym for pull her down. It's a syndrome. PhDs. We need, as women, if you don't hear anything today, we need to stop PhDs, stop pulling her down. As women, as much as we're critical because our intuition, we strive for excellence as women. We want the best for our families at work. We'll put in the work. But also, everybody can be the same. Everybody can be you. Understanding that first is the first step to transformational leadership. And why I say that is, when we think about, for example, I, for one, I'm a mother. I feel like I went through my pregnancy. It was quite easy for me. And there's nothing about being easy about giving birth. And let's not underestimate the impact of that. But everybody experiences it differently. I've had friends who have literally left the corporate space, who have left a very beautiful trajectory just because the leaders or those that were managing them at the time just didn't want to come to the table of understanding what they were going through. And as such, they definitely chose family over career. Yeah, sometimes they really feel a whole lot of regret behind that, but it doesn't have to be that way. I've seen women say to another woman, I've done it, what is so hard there? And then sometimes, because we also want the best out of another woman, we tend to push them so hard, and not everybody is able to hold her as much. So some then get a crack. And that's why there are fewer and fewer women on that ladder behind us. I think it's really important that mentorship, starts to take a different shape. Beyond us talking about it, we need to live it a whole lot more. And I like to describe it as representation of women in leadership. The intentionality of it would require us understanding what is the difference between mentorship and sponsorship. Mentorship is giving advice. Yeah, it's really important that you get mentored and you are mentoring other people. Because what that does for us is, when you're mentored, someone's hindsight becomes your foresight. Yeah, you don't have to go through the stress of trying to unpack it, understand it, because someone has already done it. So you just pick up from 95% and hit 100%, 110, 150. And it's okay. It's like a relay race. You don't have to start from the beginning. It's okay. We don't have to feel like, oh, no, everybody needs to suffer like me. No, everybody doesn't need to suffer like you. Let's understand that. Let's feel comfortable with that. And let's stop pulling her down and every other person who's on that ladder. Instead, let's start thinking about how do we study this ladder? And that then brings us to sponsorship. Sponsorship is providing access. So while mentorship is giving advice, sponsorship is giving access. And access means mentioning them in the room. Do you know this woman? The reason I'm sitting here today, by the way, is by sponsorship. Someone mentioned my name in a room. I didn't even know I was being discussed. And they said, no, you need someone like this here. Sponsorship is putting up that person's name, pushing them, in a positive light, giving them credible, constructive feedback, and ensuring that even as you're doing all of that, you're also getting yourself watered. Because, just like a pot, no matter how much you're watering others, if you're not getting filled up, you're going to empty out. And that's also not a good thing. That's where burnout then starts to come in. So as you're mentoring others, continue to find those who are also mentoring you. As you go higher on this ladder, it gets tougher. But it's really important that we surround ourselves with more women, because that's the only way we can really bring about inclusive leadership, but also, more importantly, transformational leadership.
Sure. And as you were speaking here about how the mentorship and the sponsorship, and how many times do we say, and I think it's a challenge to all of us, and Dr. Babalwa, maybe you can expand on that. Maybe we need to ask ourselves, when was the last time you mentioned another woman in the room that they were not occupying? And not in a way of, oh, did you see what she did last week Saturday? Because it's easy to gossip. It's easy to talk bad about each other. And I loved what you said as well, Ifeoma, saying that, it's so sad that if you go on social media, who do they talk bad about? Mostly the women. And it's also the women that are also going, yes, And that particular challenge of when was the last time you spoke positively and you mentioned women in spaces that they do not occupy yet? Just talk to us a little bit about the power of collectivity and collectivism within which we can create those spaces. And how do we start becoming intentional about this? Because sometimes women will say, I want to, but I don't know how.
So let's go back to the intention. And this is something that I had, again, the privilege of doing an exercise and putting it together. In 2016, I put together my first leadership manifesto, as you would do before elections, is that I put down my intention, and I was very crystal clear in terms of, firstly, what my mandate was. And at that time, based on where I was sitting in a multinational environment, I knew that the transformation mandate for me was not optional. And therefore, it became something that I verbalized to people that I will never apologize for. And therefore, that meant even showing up in these matrix organizations with a regional office in Dubai or a regional office wherever and headquarters somewhere in Europe or in the US, that they understand that when Babs opens her mouth, she's going to talk about employment equity in South Africa. So what that means to them is irrelevant to me, because I'm speaking up for my people, because this is something that I then became very intentional about. But as I was doing that, I realized that with the mandate for transformation was the responsibility to empower. And therefore, I started unpacking what my empowerment strategy would be for the leaders that I was going to be very intentional in creating. And I used exactly those 3 buckets, the mentorship, the sponsorship, and the coaching, in terms of identifying exactly who I would lift and take along with me and mention in those spaces. And I had such a conducive environment to be able to do that. And I enjoyed this in a multinational organization that, firstly, I understood where I was coming from, because also I was very vocal and verbal about it. Because you know how they say that you teach people how to treat you? So I didn't shy away from what my intention was. But even doing that in the multinational space didn't mean that I needed to stop pushing the same agenda back home, because this is where this begins. And I fostered this, I spoke about this, I labored the point, every single opportunity that I got. And we know what happens in multiple industries, multiple organizations, that they restructure basically every year, pretty much like a norm, is that, oh, then I've got new bosses sitting somewhere else in the world, and I have to preach from the same hymn, keep bringing this up. And I was very intentional about my talent maps. I would be very intentional about and journey with my people in their individual development planning, in making sure that you actually engage in the process. You help them to track their progress. You support them. You give them the feedback, etc. But the sponsorship is one of those things that I recognized earliest to be most important, because I got to be where I got because of sponsorship as well. Somebody mentioned me in a room. And that's still one of my fondest memories, because it was one of the pivots to my career, because I happened to be a team member who was showing up for a team member. Like, I'm just a doctor, guys. I've never done anything marketing. And the marketing team member was not able to present in this meeting because they were not able to travel. And I said, it's fine, I'll present on their behalf. And there happened to be somebody from somewhere in the world, a very, very senior executive, who heard me present a marketing presentation which was pretty much impromptu, and said, that ain't no doctor presenting there. There's more to this woman than just that. Let's nurture her. Let's make sure that she grows in understanding the business and understands the business from a commercial point of view, but then also because of already what I had shown in terms of leading people, there was a whole lot more for me to do in the leadership space and being intentional about that. So that all came from the sponsorship. So you pay it forward. That's what you do. And if you develop a manifesto like I did in 2016, I don't necessarily have to revisit it every now and again, but definitely when I hit another pivot in my career, I go back because I use that as my accountability checkpoint to say, am I still being true to mission, my own mission?
And I love the aspect of being practical about what your manifesto is. You know, I've learned now, as you rise within this leadership space, it's important to also have, and you're talking about manifesto, it's important to have your own constitution. You know, what are those principles, values that I live by and decisions that I live by that will not sway me either or, even if it gets rough, you know. And I love what you're saying about the manifesto. I'm going to give this time now where I start opening up the conversation to our ladies who are joining us this evening. If you do have a question as well, please don't feel shy. Maybe a question or a comment in terms of how some of these themes that we have tackled this evening have landed with you, and maybe even nuggets as to when you go home or when you go to your spaces of influence, how then do you want to start championing some of these lessons that we've learned? Because I think that for a lot of the conversations that we have these conversations all the time, but what ends up happening is that we leave it at conversation level. And what we need to become is more intentional about how it goes beyond just, oh, that was a nice talk. you know, and how then do we start making sure that it implements so that the ripples of change can start being witnessed within our spaces of influence. So please, if they, my executive producer, Busi, is here. So if you do have a question or do have a comment, just pick up your hand, ladies, and then we'll give the mic over to you. Anybody that would like to bring up? Yeah?
Wait for somebody to be brave. I feel like we have not tackled the question around how do we leave the door open.
Yeah.
I think we touched on it, but I just want to close it off and share the methodologies that I've been using in my career and that have worked for me. So me, I was mentored by this strong woman early on, and she taught me to be intentional. I mean, you spoke a lot about being intentional, right?
Mm.
But also intentional with opening a door for someone else. And she taught me a 1,000 days rule in one role. So banking is very big. And if you look at the landscape where the world is going, there's so much of new things that we need to learn. So I always say I follow trends. So if I have studied accounting, I'm going to make sure that I know tech. Because AI, guys, artificial intelligence, I mean, tech is the future. So what I do, I get into a role first year. I learn about the role because I never take roles that I know everything about. Never. Because it does not allow me to grow. So I will know 50% or 80% at most. So that there's 20% that will come to me personally. Second year, I make sure that my succession plan is intact. The last year, I actually make myself redundant.
Sure.
Because I've built such a strong team. They can run on their own. They don't need me as a leader. And I tell my bosses that I'm ready for the next. And that strategy has worked so well for me. I've been in so multiple portfolios, like different portfolios. I've been in analytical space, platform, tech, risk, you name them. It has worked until now. I was told that, hey, at this level, 3 years is too short. But I'm just saying that I think if you are still building and you are still wanting to grow, there's two aspects to it. You are able to actually empower yourself and accelerate yourself, but also through succession planning, you make sure that the people that you lead, you actually prepare them so well to take over from you.
I love what you're saying because it speaks significantly to if you had to get sick as a boss, is your team able to continue without you? And if the answer is no, then you have been holding on the reins too tightly, and you have not given them the room to find their own confidence to lead without you. And I think that the aspect of the succession planning is something that is another challenge that we're throwing at each other this evening. I think we've got 2 challenges that are going so far. So the 3 challenges. We've got the PhD. So Ifeoma spoke about, let's stop with the PhD unless it's the one where you get a doctorate. Stop with the PhD. And then the second one, of course, is about how do we say each other's rooms and spaces that we don't occupy? How do we become intentional about saying our names in each other's names? And I love what you're saying now, succession planning. What does your succession plan actually look like? But we've got another lady. We've got the questions that are coming up. Please just stand up and introduce yourself, and then please go ahead with your question.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. My name is Portia. I'm a nurse by profession. So you don't get a chance to stand or to be in platforms like this. I feel so privileged. So I think I'm like Dr. Babalwa, like she says, you feel like, no, this is not for me. And with my my colleague here, I've just said, I don't think I'm going to say anything today. But you know what? I feel like I am so inspired. One, I think I've struggled a lot with being a perfectionist. And being a perfectionist, you don't allow other people to do anything. You just want to do everything by yourself, and you feel like it has to be successful your way. But with meeting people and talking to people and being aware that, sometimes you just have to share the experiences, share your skills, share the information, sit back a little bit, let somebody do something, and sometimes you realize that they actually can do it much better than you would have thought. So really I've taken, something from every one of you, and with all the things that maybe were my downfalls, I think now I am going to do better and become, a better leader, because I think self-awareness, it's actually everything. If you're not aware of yourself, you are not able to assist anybody. Thank you so much for this platform and time.
Thank you so much. And I love what you were saying, that, when we start becoming self-aware, and how being a perfectionist sometimes does not allow you to give others the space to showcase their own strengths. That is absolutely beautiful, and thank you very much for sharing. We've got another question or a comment. Hi, ma'am. Go ahead.
Hi, good evening, ladies. All looking very beautiful. I must say it's a very thought-provoking discussion that we are having, and it also forces one to introspect. And I think I reiterate what the both of you have said now. I wanted to speak to self-awareness. After, I think Azande, right? What you said, and after you shared your experiences, my question then is, how important is it as a leader to be self-aware in these different spaces where the pull her down syndrome exists and the toxicity exists? How important is it to be self-aware, and what then are the benefits of being self-aware in such instances? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I will take the if there's not one more. Can I take one more, and then we'll go to you, Azande, to answer, then maybe another. So let's just pass on the microphone.
Good evening, ladies. My name is Lutando, and I'm in banking. I'm a young leader. And I think for many young leaders that are in the room today, I think it's important that I ask this question. And it kind of speaks to the great disjuncture that sits between the fact that on the JSE, there's only 19% representation of females that are directors on the local exchange. And yet there's so many young leaders that are very well studied that could actually bridge into those positions that we so desperately need. A lot of you have spoken about mentorship, sponsorship, especially trying to lift as you rise as well. And I think in that sense, you don't have to mentor and sponsor someone on a one-on-one basis. We can have it in these forums as well. And so in your journeys of mentoring and sponsoring young ladies, what are the common development areas you've picked up that is missing in them that we can take tonight and say, this is my own journey, I'm going ahead with it, so that I can make it easier for women at the top to take me with them?
That is a beautiful question, very profound. I'm going to give you everybody an opportunity to please speak on that, because I think it's so imperative for especially the younger generation that is coming up in leadership in terms of, finding those common areas of development. That was very beautiful. But Azande, let's start off with you around the issue, the importance of being self-aware, especially in those spaces that can be a little bit toxic.
It's very important. In a leadership role, you are constantly learning, you're constantly evolving. And self-awareness is extremely important when you are in a leadership position and when you're leading people. It's not easy also, because taking criticism, it's like looking at yourself in the mirror, but it's talking back to you. And now you've got to take these shots. And you've just got to be, you've got to arm yourself and know, you've got to unmask yourself first. Undress yourself and be like, what are my pitfalls? What are my downfalls? And you've got to be very honest about that. And once you're honest about that, then you know how best to work on it. And I think it's important that you are constantly evaluating yourself, and not just one-on-one. You need to get the feedback from everyone. You need to get feedback from your family, feedback from your peers, feedback from your team, feedback from your leader, your seniors, and see what the common thread is within that feedback and work on it constantly. So for me, self-awareness is very important in a leadership position. And if once you're aware of yourself as a leader, you're able to then manage your emotions in toxic situations. You are able to know when it's right to talk and when it's not right to talk. You're able to know when it's right to walk away. Because a lot of times, I think I never want to stay in a situation where it's toxic. I live by the value of be visible, be vulnerable, and be vocal. Right? And once I'm visible, because, then you can see who I am. I'm vulnerable, I've undressed myself, but I'm also going to be vocal about how I feel, but in a respectful way. And once I've exhausted that, and I see that it's not going anywhere, then it's time for me to walk away. That's my self-awareness talking to me. But it's very, very important.
Sure.
Can I just add on to that? I lecture personal development in business schools and obviously lecture leaders. You know how many people don't know themselves? They are well accomplished on their CV. They've got greatest titles. Azande, to your point, they don't know. And my trainer posted something on WhatsApp yesterday. I don't normally watch WhatsApp statuses, but I did yesterday. And it was something along the lines that our backgrounds, sometimes they shape how we show up. But we are very quick to own that and label ourselves as such. We don't unlearn certain traits. And we think, no, somebody will say, you know me, no, I'm very short-tempered. I'm very short-tempered. And they romanticize it and they make it as if it's a good trait to have. It's not. If it goes tough in the boardroom and people are not agreeing with you, are you going to lose your temper? You're speaking about emotional intelligence. Are you going to lose it because that's who you are? No, not very. So, very important. But I think you have summarized it so well that I want to do justice to.
Honestly, I don't like that that's who I am attitude. You cannot, especially in the workplace. You work with different characters, different personalities, people who come from different backgrounds, people who have certain traumas. And for you to come in a space where you're working with a diverse people and to say, that's who I am, that's how I am, as a leader is completely off. And that's where the self-awareness comes in, is where you have to completely undress and unmask yourself and ask yourself, what is wrong with me? What am I not doing right? Where can I better myself? Or also give yourself praise. That's the problem with us women sometimes, is we don't pat ourselves on the shoulder because I'm a good team builder. That's my skill. That's my gift.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't realize it, but you need to constantly give credit to yourself. And affirmations are very important.
I love some of and I feel like we're all getting challenged a little bit with the conversations that we're having this evening, because for those who do not take the time to be self-aware, it's easy for you to bleed onto other people because you don't know the scars that are still open. And how many, I can imagine, how many leaders have bled onto their staff because they themselves have not addressed some of the wounds that have been left open for them. I want to go on to the next question that was asked, though, as well. And maybe let me start off with you, Babalwa, and then Ifeoma, if you could also expound on that, because it's very critical, especially for the next generation of leaders, around the common areas of development for younger people that want to come up into leadership spaces. What have been some of those areas that you've recognized as being the common areas where they get to develop a little bit more?
Yeah, so I have a personal anecdote of trying to coach somebody and journey with somebody so that they could be able to navigate their own leadership journey. And one thing that I found, I always say this is like borderline anti-feminist, but very empowering at the same time, is that, especially in the male-dominated industries, the first thing you need to actually do is to radically accept that this is what it is. Understand the beast that you are working with. Understand the DNA of your beast so that you know how to navigate around it. What do I mean by that? I mean that if you decide, so now this is Babs deciding, that you know what, today, because I am responsible for a team of however many people, I need to be effective. And if that takes me just brushing up this ego for today, that is exactly what I'm going to do. Because I'm here for my people, and I need to be effective for them. So it's not about me. So immediately I take it away from me, but also because I've made that choice, then I get to keep the power. So it doesn't take anything away from me to make such decisions, to realize that I work in a patriarchal environment. And sometimes I need to use my softness, right? So you leverage your strengths, but then you also understand what the beast is so that you can work around it. And that is something sometimes especially young people then miss, because our young people are militant. I was once like like that. It also depends on the quantum of change that you want to make, because change management is a process. And it's a process that has to go through all of those stages before you reach acceptance. So we have to work with what we are given, and this is no excuse for these male-dominated industries. In fact, the fact that we even still speaking about male-dominated industries in 2025 is absolutely criminal. It speaks to this will fall on the wrong side of history. But this is what we have. And this is what we have to work with. And we have to be effective.
Sure. I like that when you're saying that, you've noticed that young people have been militant. I'm just going to share from what I've been so judgmental of, and it's only because I've crossed the threshold of not being called a youth. So I'm not youth. And when I became not youth, I became so judgmental of young people. Because I would use terms like, they are so soft. And they're so fragile. And they always talk about their mental health, and I used to judge them until I went, hang on a second. Maybe they've established the boundaries that we failed to establish. Maybe they are onto something that we failed to get on. Maybe it's not okay for my boss to phone me at 3 o'clock in the morning and want a presentation from me. Maybe it's not okay for me to, after 10 o'clock when I've put my kids to bed, that, I'm still on my laptop and maybe actually the generation that's coming in is teaching me that the job will still be there after you have dropped dead.
Yeah.
And they will replace you quickly. And that took me from judging. I'm so sorry, young people. It took me from judging to being somebody that actually values their perspective in life. But there are also, Ifeoma, spaces where they can develop.
Yeah, you're spot on that. When she asked that question, it was a very good question, actually. When I think back on my own leadership journey and how I was able to unlock next generational leadership for myself, it was in a forum like this. I was sponsored to attend a women's engagement forum, and the guest speaker was a man. And after he was done, about 2 hours, I was reflecting deeply to myself, and I said to myself, it's about time. I need a mentor. I need someone to guide me through. Now, all along, I've had this lady who sponsored this trip trying to mentor me, but I was running away, feeling too busy to get mentored. But I think after I sat through that session, I knew definitely this was the time to ask or not. And I'd walked up to him and I asked, can you be my mentor? In fact, by the time I spoke up, I realized, what the hell are you thinking? Like, this guy's a very busy man. He's the CEO of one of the biggest, oil companies. And I'm here asking him, can you be my mentor? And then he looked at me for a second and then he said, okay, I have a long list of people, but I'll try and squeeze you in. And that moment was a turning point for me. Now, to your question around what then happened in that journey of mentoring, I found that powerful leadership, that leadership that leaves off that legacy that we're talking about, usually is comprised of two things. One is inspiring through purpose, and the second is shaping the future. Shaping the future is a lot more towards both people as well as performance. But most importantly is inspiring through purpose. And you cannot inspire others or drive influence if you as a person do not even know what your purpose is. So one of the first steps of that mentoring session was first trying to unpack, who am I? And I found that that question has been so difficult for me for the longest, which is the reason why I kept on running away from the first woman who's been trying to get me to a space to say, do the work, And of course, this time around, I know I went asking, so I had to do that work. I had to pin myself down a whole day, reflected. And it started with a SWOT analysis. What are your strengths? Oh, that one was easy. I had a long list. Oh, I know I do. My strengths was going so long, I was like, okay, are you going to have weaknesses at this point? When I got to weaknesses, then my pen started shaking. I could not clearly identify what my weaknesses were. I was hearing it in my head, but I wasn't going to write it down.
Sure.
And then there were the opportunities. What are your threats? In terms of what you want out of life. So one of the questions he asked me was, what do you want to be remembered for? That question might seem easy, but a lot of young people do not have those answers. Yeah, and I found that in my own mentoring journey of other young women, when it gets to the point, that first session is always so hard, trying to really unpack who are you, what you want out of life. Okay, give me 5 things. If you don't have 5, it's okay. If you can give me up to 2 things, what is it that you want out of life? Whether it's as a family person or as a young girl or as a career woman, what are those things? That's usually the first step. When they go off and come back, they realize it was actually tough, but I'm happy I did. And then the next step is, once you've been able to clearly craft what your purpose is, and that purpose is not just in the air, it needs to be like a mission statement. Once you've crafted it authentically, what then happens is every other thing then revolves around it. The choices that you make, the gaps that you need to close, your weaknesses also then show up in terms of your opportunities and what are the threats you currently have. And then you see yourself building out a very beautiful life plan. Once I had my own life plan, the rest was history. I was going like, where is it? Who's the gap? I'm closing it. What do I need to do? I'm closing it. I started showing up differently.
Sure.
And I'm really glad about my journey. And I know sometimes he reaches out and says to me, I'm really proud of how far you've come. Because, hey, it would not have been the same story if I didn't start that mentorship session and I didn't follow through with it. So again, I'll just reiterate, shaping the future is about being very strategic and having a vision for what is your leadership about. But most importantly, crafting what your purpose is and inspiring through purpose is next level when it comes to driving transformational leadership.
Sure. And I really do appreciate that, because it just summarizes how we need to start becoming more intentional about living life by design. We need to actually start designing the lives that we want to live and not live by accident or live by mishap. And you are hearing the conversations that we're going to be closing off the conversations at the back of our ad break. I know that we've got a couple of more questions that we would really like to take within the room as well. Do join us for this one, and continue to join us within our different spaces. Remember, we're live on YouTube, we're on Facebook, as well as SABC Plus, the special broadcast of She Speaks, courtesy of EmpowaWoman and Metro FM. Of course, Metro FM Talk here, bringing you this special broadcast of wonderful women who are sharing insights about leadership and how they can take this leadership role forward. But for now, let's go pay some bills. We're going to come back and we're going to speak again.
At work, at play, online, and on the air. Check us out at Metro FM SA on all the socials. Metro FM, it's where you want to be. Where I want to be. It's about damn time. It's the place to be.
How we feeling? Turn up the music.
At the convergence of the melody and rhythm and the voice and the people who can hear it, love it, dance to it, and rejoice. Where the beat is the message and the message upbeat. Where ignorance is erased and information sets the pace. Where ambition is the mission, the destination, inspiration. And the fuel in the tank is pure unleaded perspiration. Because this is where we meet, on the corner of here we are and where we want to be. Metro FM, it's where you want to be.
Have one game plan, a win in their own backyard. However, Usutu have a different mission. They are not traveling to Limpopo on holiday. They are hunting for 3 points. This is the Betway Premiership. Catch Makesi FC versus Amazulu FC this Saturday, 30 August at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC 1 and SABC Plus. Then on SABC radio stations at 3 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Spring rains are coming, and thanks to Build It, you can get ready to save water. Get a 2,400-litre water tank for $1,949 with a 10-year warranty and a free Tommy Tap. Sounds like a deal you can't miss, right? Plus, spend $500 or more in store, and you could win one of 8 Mahindra Bolero maxi trucks. Enter now. Competition and promo ends 6 September. 40 for better. Only at Build It.
After a 1-0 loss against Arsenal in the opening match of the new season, the Red Devils are searching for a win at Old Trafford.
Mason Mount! Oh, what a finish from Mason Mount! Held it home 2-1.
However, the Clarets are gunning for a crucial 3 points away from home.
Justin Brownell! We're all square! What a goal from Burnley!
This is the Premier League. Experience Manchester United versus Burnley FC on Saturday, 30 August at 3:30 p.m. Live on SABC 3 and SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Hollywood Bets is bringing you a bounty of prizes with Spina Zonke prize drops. Gear up to unravel an endless supply of treasures and claim fantastic riches with a chance to win an amazing share of 2.5 million rand in cash and prizes. All you have to do is bet 2 rand or more on selected pragmatic play games on Mondays, Tuesdays and Thursdays between 12:30 p.m. and 10:30 p.m. Feel the ultimate thrill when you log in for a spin and bet now. T's and C's apply. Hollywood Sportsbook is a licensed betting operator. Hollywood Bet supports responsible gambling. No persons under the age of 18 years are permitted to gamble. Winners know when to stop. South African Responsible Gambling Foundation toll-free counselling line 0800 006 008 or WhatsApp help to 076 675 0710.
We bring you breaking news. Now everyone who buys at Tops wins a prize, guaranteed.
Everyone?
Almal, alles, aunties, uncles.
Cousins and even their cousins. Arthurs, Marthas.
Brads, Chads.
Tinas and Cleaners.
The aware Masakiners.
The Hey Wenamabenas.
Everyone wins at Tops with 300 million rand in guaranteed prizes. Buy any participating products for 100 rand or more. Swipe your Spar Rewards card, scan the QR code, and upload your till slip. Not for sale to persons under the age of 18. T's and C's apply.
Have you discovered the TV license WhatsApp yet? We see you binging reruns, living for the drama, loving the SABC Plus sports replays. Now paying your TV license fits the vibe. Simply say hi on WhatsApp to 077-6069-060. Get your balance, make a payment, or set up a debit order all in one chat. No queues, no please hold, just convenience that feels like it should have been here all along. Because every screen in South Africa is a stage and yours is lit. So why wait? Send hi on WhatsApp to 077-6069-060 and get your TV license sorted today. Hashtag your screen, your story.
Ladies and gentlemen, brace yourselves. Metro FM is about to redefine your listening experience. Welcome to the future of entertainment, where Metro FM goes beyond the airwaves. Presenting the Metro FM TVC and the all-new Metro FM off-air podcast. Whether you're at home, on the move, or at the office, Metro FM now offers you a multi-channel platform for entertainment, information, and inspiration. Tune in and watch our dynamic TV commercials designed to dazzle and engage. But that's not all. You know how we do it. Step into a world of unfiltered conversations, exclusive interviews.
You listen to it, and it just revives your spirit.
And behind-the-scenes content with the Metro FM off-air podcast. Available wherever you go. It's not just radio anymore.
We can't help it.
It's the ultimate experience. Subscribe, watch, listen, and become part of the Metro FM revolution.
I just love it.
It's more than music. It's Metro. Metro FM. Broadening horizons and enriching your world. Tune in now and be a part of the future. Metro FM's TVC and podcasts available on SABC Plus, YouTube, and Facebook.
Can we just talk?
Metro FM Talk with Faith Mangope. Monday to Thursday, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m.
It is 4 minutes to go before the top of 9 o'clock. You know, this saying that time flies when you're having fun is actually a real saying, because we thought that we could have another hour of conversation. But alas, we are fast running out of time, of course, as we're bringing you the special broadcast of She Speaks on Metro FM Talk here in front of a live audience of ours. Beautiful bevy of women who are joining us really to talk about how do we spearhead and champion leadership, especially when cultivating the succession plan so that other leaders in the space come up as we rise. Ladies, we've got literally 3 minutes left, and who would have thought we wouldn't have enough time for this conversation? But I really want us to round it off with key takeaways and especially tangible places to start in building effective leadership stories. And I'm going to go in the room because, again, this should not be a conversation where we just came to conversate. This should be a conversation where we get to take in nuggets and go to apply them in our spaces of influence. So as we go around and really become intentional about where do we start and how do we start in cultivating effective leaders while being aware of our own leadership strengths. Azande, let me start off with you.
Okay, so I don't want to say much. I think for me, we've got an Empower Women Leadership Summit this Saturday. And all the key takeouts that we had, we're going to have more of that. But what's really important is there is an exclusive, it's dubbed the most powerful room in the country, an exclusive, Bubbles and Nibbles soiree that we have. And it is only exclusive to CEOs, CXOs, and it's brought to you by our friends at APSA and CCBSA. What I want to do is challenge young women who believe that they can be in a room and network with CEOs, business leaders, decision makers on that Saturday to reach out to our social media page, and I'll give 5 of those ladies an opportunity to come into that room and network and make sure that they are seen and heard.
I love that. Talk about intentionality. Well, that's where we start. Just repeat the social media handles, please.
So it's at EmpowaWorx on LinkedIn, on Instagram, as well as Facebook and X, as well as Empower Women. Yes, and this one is brought to us by our friends at APSA and CCBSA. They've always supported us. They've always shown up for us. They've always believed in the power of women collaborating. So I'm just saying kudos to them for making this opportunity possible.
Well, 5 ladies, make sure that you utilize this opportunity given, and thank you very much for that sponsorship. And for you, Ifeoma?
I think I'll leave with about 2 or 3 points. The first one is that women don't lack ability. They often lack visibility. And for women leadership and really promoting that, it's really important for us as women to continue to, portray what women leadership really is, the true facet of it, and really encourage those around us to be visible. However, we tend to say, we need to have a seat in the room. We need to have a seat at the table. It is not enough anymore to just sit at the table. We need to be a voice in the room. And for you to be a voice in the room, you would have prepared yourself. For every meeting, for every session, you have a seat at the table. You need to continue to justify why you're there. Sometimes they say we need to work twice as hard. That's okay. But let's not just be yet again another seat at the table. Let's be the voice in the room. And the last thing I want to leave in the room as well is, as we go up this ladder of leadership, it's important that we build allies. And allies could either be male or female, because it's really important for us to also understand that the future of leadership is not male or female. It's inclusive. And on that note, I want to say thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Dr. Babalwa?
My challenge would be on the definition of success for the next generation in particular. But considering when I challenged myself to define success, and I landed on success for me would be when I have used my gifts and strengths, my unique experiences, my core values to show up as my best authentic self so that I can drive impact and purpose for a generation.
Sure. I love that. And Dr. Pulane?
Okay, cool. Thank you. I think for me is don't let boundaries and challenges define you. Make sure that you use them to refine yourself. But most importantly, empower yourself, guys. If you want to be a CEO, for example, in investment banking, understand what it takes so that when those opportunities opens, you are ready. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And this is where we leave it. We do leave it here for the special broadcast of Metro FM Talk. Of course, it is She Speaks, coming to you live from Randburg. We are at the EmpowaWorx headquarters this evening, and really just empowering women and giving women the space to rise up to the fullest version of themselves. And I think that we will leave with this quote that I hope it resonates with all women, and I hope that you know that really you are worth it. And I hope that women out there actually know that you are worth it and take a chance on yourself, because nobody else will. Take the chance on yourself. You are literally the best person that you have been waiting for to save you. Thank you so much to all of our guests for joining us this evening. Thank you very much to all of our ladies for joining us in the audience as well. May this not be a conversation. May this be a beginning of change that is going to be resonated and replicated throughout the course of South Africa, Africa, and the global community. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. It is a minute after 9 o'clock. It means it's time for me to go, but I do leave you in the wonderful hands of Paul Modiha, who's going to take you all the way until midnight. And of course, you're going to enjoy some good music here with Paul as he leads you on from this next bit. But from myself, my guests, as well as my wonderful studio audience, it's been an absolute pleasure joining you this evening. Until we talk again, bye-bye.
If you missed it, catch the podcast on metrofm.co.za. From Brenda Fassie to Beyonce.